Welcome to Dr. TSPR show. This is Dr. Tangella Shiva Prasad Reddy alias Dr. TSPR. Namaste, Adab, Hello and Ayubowan. This is a greeting in Sri Lanka. Wishing you all good health. Not just Sri Lankans, the world over, because we don't wish you to go Sri Lankan way. This is an important day when it comes to the life of citizens, concerned citizens, people of any country, as I think someone has to. It is all good health. Not just Sri Lankans, the world over, because we don't wish you to go Sri Lankan.
Someone has used
This is important. It is echoing. Let me just see. Life of citizens. It is.
Has somebody got YouTube? Has somebody got YouTube?
As
Has somebody got a YouTube window open?
I think someone has to. It is
me.
I think it is
Is
you
it
only.
me? Just hold on.
Some YouTube window is open. So it is an important day for all the citizens of the world. Why Sri Lanka land into such crisis? People are on the roads, lives are being lost, properties destroyed. But more than that, why this? The life of citizens, people became so costly. For bread and butter also they had to run helter-skelter. And we have seen the latest video, which I don't want to play. Young girl dying, or she died because of lack of transport, because there was no petrol for the vehicle. Such a pathetic stage. Precious lives are being lost. And why? In the name of development, you have shown only ports, roads, that infrastructure, that money you borrowed, and in turn, those borrowings have become so bigger, unable to pay those debts, leave out debts. The interest which was borrowed, even the sovereign land of Sri Lanka or some ports being mortgaged with China or Singapore. If I am wrong, you can correct. Can this happen anywhere in the world? People are on the roads fighting with each other, and there was suddenly a government change. They said it is because of family rule, because of utmost corruption, and no accountability and transparency in administration. And more of all, in all these developmental activities, people of Sri Lanka were not taken into confidence by the rulers. So is that the thing? We have discussed it last, and now we are going to discuss in a similar way the socio-political economic conditions prevailing in Sri Lanka at this time, and how it is influencing the people of Sri Lanka. How are they going to come out of it? And is this going to be a lesson for India? Many states, they have been borrowing white elephants, not in the welfare, because the commissions which they get out of these corporate contracts, roads or infrastructure, political parties funding has gone up. They feel they can win the elections investing money. Let people go to dash dash. But Sri Lanka has taught a lesson to the world. On one side, World Economic Forum Davos meeting, all youngsters rushing. This is nonsense. Why the hell you should rush to some businessman to come and invest in your land? You have resources here, natural resources. Every country has got natural resources and human resources. Why the hell you should go there? They should come to your country. There should be discussion from panchayat level to municipalities and then assemblies in Lok Sabha as in India. They should decide, and there should be transparency. What is the amount they are investing, what sort of jobs and what sort of revenue, and how it is going to be ecological friendly and without destroying your culture, your ethos. Instead, these politicians run to Davos, and the other side Quad, America, Australia, Japan and India meeting. But nowhere I saw the serious discussion in regards to Sri Lanka. When Sri Lanka is burning, except some containment of some things by India, Indians also could not discuss it in Quad, or the young minds from states who are rushing to Davos, forgetting what has happened in Sri Lanka in the name of development. So that is the reason why this day This topic is of utmost importance. The entire world is watching, and we have, as usual, Ranjan De Silva, Ranil Senanayake, Tahan, Pradeep Jayawardhanaji is the new one to join. Faisal Mansoor, of course, my good friend, and he is the facilitator. Mas Yusuf, as well as Father Shadar Jamal Goda. And only Mr. Pradeep, he has been a consul general in West Germany, and now he is also a member in Municipal Council, Sri Lanka. He is the latest to join. Otherwise, all their credentials are known, but I'll just give them. Kabir Hashim MP is to join, he will. And Ranil Senanayake is a systems ecologist. And at the same time, we have Mas Yusuf, he is attorney at law and is a columnist. And then Father Sharad, he is a liberation theologist and civil activist. And not to forget about the first speaker, Ranjan De Silva ji, who has done a lot of good to this show last time too. Many people who are behind me for the PPTs and all, which he has generated as to how one should lead a life, how the progressive development should be. So we are going to start with Mr. Ranjan De Silva again today. Yes, sir. The floor is yours, please. Unmute yourself and speak, sir. This show, all the guests are from Sri Lanka. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Prasad Reddy, and good evening. Good evening to all of you. I'm discussing. I thought I will talk about the article I wrote on the doctrine of odious debt. I think I circulated it to all of you.
Yes.
Sri Lanka's biggest problem at the moment is this unsustainable debt of $51 billion, which the IMF has described as being unsustainable. This is very likely to delay the assistance Sri Lanka is urgently hoping for from the IMF. One solution, though not well known, to make the debt sustainable is found in the doctrine of odious debt. This, however, presupposes the change of regime. I can think of other solutions too, which could be less painful to the people. Now, the odious debt, the doctrine. A creditor country also has certain obligations to fulfill before giving a loan to another country. That obligation is, before giving the loan, the creditor country must see whether the loan will benefit the people of that country. If it does not and proceeds to give the loan nevertheless, then that country has failed to fulfill its obligations as a creditor and must be ready to face the consequences of such action. This is the rationale of the doctrine. If the people of the debtor country has not benefited from the loan given, and the creditor country knew or ought to have known that the loan won't benefit the people of the debtor country, yet nevertheless proceeds to give the loan, then the debtor country has a right to repudiate that loan. This is the quintessence of the doctrine. We all know that millions are spent doing feasibility studies before a loan is given or taken. This is done precisely for this purpose of finding out whether the project is beneficial or not to the people. To this, I wish to add the following for further consideration. First, the sovereign people give a mandate to a government for an agreed period of time. In the US, it is 4 years. In the Philippines and Australia also, it is 4 years. In Sri Lanka, and I think India too, it is 5 years. Therefore, no government has the right to bind the country in any contract for a period exceeding its mandate. No government has the right to bind the country in any contract for a period exceeding its mandate without first either consulting the people first, such as, for example, at a referendum, or unless it is clearly provided in the Constitution, or thirdly, the government in waiting gives its acquiescence. Secondly, if none of these conditions have been fulfilled, the debtor country has the right to defer the creditor country to those who are politically and administratively accountable for the debt,
Wonderful. Yes.
and assist the creditor country to recover its money from those in the debtor country and elsewhere who are accountable personally for the loss at the political and administrative level. This is an adequate defense to neutralize any possible allegations that the debtor country is violating laws, rules, practices relating to the conduct of international business. Countries and international institutions such as the World Bank, IMF, ADB that provide genuine assistance will have nothing to fear. In fact, they may even support this idea as they see that some powerful countries are using money as a weapon to expand their using money as a weapon in poor countries to expand their hegemony. This doctrine has greater relevance to loans which are given unsolicited. This doctrine has greater relevance to loans which are given unsolicited. This doctrine has been around the world for well over 100 years, but it has not received much publicity mainly due to geopolitics. Among the countries that have benefited uh, are even United States and Russia. Sri Lanka should endeavor to obtain relief for the loans taken or given for the following projects undertaken uh, for the following projects under this doctrine without causing more pain to the people. Some of these projects are Hambantota Harbour, Mattala Airport, Surya Weather Cricket Stadium, Pura International Convention Center, Port City, and Lotus Tower. It is also advisable for us to do a forensic audit of all the loans taken during these 74 years of independence to see whether there are such other projects also. Very briefly, that is my presentation. I thank you. And I am now open for discussion.
Wonderful. It was a wonderful treatise. I think you have made the life very, very comfortable in making people to become the sovereign responsible, because every citizen owns the natural resource, not single. And you very clearly stated that debtor country, if a political party borrows in such a fashion, you said these politicians and administrators should be held responsible. And this is a big takeout from your this thing. I hope the world is listening, including the states like Telangana and everyone who is rushing to Davos World Economic Forum. People should become awake. We should not go Sri Lankan way. What an idea. 5 years of your rule, in that 5 years only, everything should be settled, loan and all. Otherwise, these politicians, political parties, along with the administrators who have said yes, even if the courts become part of it, they should also be held responsible. Whoever is borrowing, not at the cost of public suffering, why should people pay? And there is no transparency and accountability. Yes, sir. Who will speak now? Pradeep ji or Ranil ji? Yes, please.
Ranjan, please mute yourself.
Okay. All right. Dr. Danga, and thank you for inviting me, fellow participants. You know, what I wanted to talk to you is that Sri Lanka is a classic example of where the rest of the world is going to go to. Why do I say this? Because Sri Lanka, like the rest of the world, jumped on enthusiastically to take fossil energy as the development power to drive us. Now, and they used a whole idea of development which was totally destructive. Why? Because for us in Sri Lanka, we have a Buddhist background, and we know that grasping, krodaya, brings suffering. Samvardhanaya, or development, the question arises here, is development the creation of desire? If development is the creation of desire, there's only one fruit that comes from it, as the Buddha says, and that is suffering. That is where we are now, suffering, because we have been addicted to fossil fuel. We are addicted to it to turn our lights on, to send our children to school, to go somewhere, to drive, to do our agriculture. We are addicted to it. And just like addicts anywhere in the world, we have fallen. We are in the drain here, without our drug. That is Sri Lanka. That is where the world will go to, country by country, because oil is destructive. The power of fossil energy is totally destructive. It's destructive to the planet, it's destructive for life. All of us, when we I get into a car, and when I start and go, I am aware that I am contributing to the destruction of the planet. Now, none of us, we take this for granted, and we call this development. We have to change. Now, in Sri Lanka, there is a chance, because climate change is coming. We have to pay the price for what we did. But the ancients of Sri Lanka has bestowed this nation with 32,000 tanks right around our mountains that can hold water. We are bestowed with mountains that, if reforested again, can have hydrologic cycles that ensure great stability in the uncertain future to come. We know that with climate change, temperatures are going to go beyond the critical temperature for photosynthesis or chlorophyll. In India, it has already happened. In India and Pakistan, you will now see crop failures and crop going down. Why? Because photosynthesis, plants cannot photosynthesize above 48 degrees. They're finished. At 38 is the optimum temperature for them. We are killing ourselves. And while we sit here talking, we are ignoring the most and critical important thing on this planet, the most important thing on this planet, and that is the green matter, photosynthetic biomass. That is the only thing that gives us oxygen, that cleans the water and produces the food we eat. And up to today, all we do around the planet is just reduce the living photosynthetic biomass on every given place in the name of development. A total different approach to development must come. If we are thinking of the children and the future, we have to think of the living ecosystem, the life support system, the ecosystem services that have to support the health and the life of the children coming after us. And if we don't put value into that, and if we are still putting value into the destructive movement of current development, we are done. Finally, I will tell you another way to look at this, and that is, We, economically speaking, we have come here today because we have allowed industry to externalize the negative cost of their activities. So if the activities were hurting everybody, well, that was externalized, they didn't have to pay. That is why we got to where we are. And economically, activity can also produce positive externalities. If you look at the current research and the current studies, the economists are saying the ecosystem services of the planet is worth $114 trillion per year. And we still have not been able to capitalize on this. If we create positive externalities, there is the key to capitalize on this huge wealth and change the way the planet is going. Sri Lanka is an example, and we should start, and I think we have now begun here to create at least some examples of what I'm talking about to move into the future. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. You have very clearly spelled out the development should be holistic, and it should take the concerns of the nature and biodiversity, as you rightly said, the photosynthesis. If the temperature goes beyond, as it is really happening in southern India, from where I am making a show in Hyderabad, we have never seen such type of temperatures in March. And the flash floods which are happening in Kerala and all over. In Hyderabad, people got washed away, we call. So that is the impact of the climate change. And that climate change happens just because of our need, not our need, greed. We go beyond. Our Gandhiji used to say, there is everything for everyone the nature has given in need. But if you become greed, then it is gone. The same thing is replicating in entire the world. So the Sri Lanka should have been an example to be discussed at World Economic Forum or Quad. They don't discuss. That is why we are trying to discuss this so beautifully explained by the two speakers. So are we going to learn a lesson? Can Sri Lanka come out of this with simple means, progressing more progressively by taking all these bio photosynthetic aspect, because it's a beautiful country. It's a beautiful country, believe me, and everything is there, resourceful, vast coastline and everything, mountains on one side. And why this is happening, and why this should happen at all, and how we could have prevented, where we have lost the way out, and what should we do, and what should be done so that you should not land in this, and what should be a lesson for the entire world. Yes, sir. Next, Pradeep ji, are you going to? Yeah, please, sir. Unmute and you can. If you have any presentation, I will make you present. We get his Enan.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Prasad, Siva Prasad Reddy,
Yeah.
and thank you, everyone. I actually would like to make a couple of points with regard to the economy, which I think many people are talking today, and there's a great deal of discussion and opinion being put out as to what is the cause, what has caused this, and where we are. What I want to say very clearly is, firstly, Sri Lanka is not bankrupt. We have an economic crisis. We have a situation where people have lost confidence in the rupee, and they have lost confidence in our government. So we have a liquidity crisis, and we have a situation where we are not able to pay back our loans. And this can be resolved. The second point I would like to make is that I fully agree with Dr. Ranil Selanayakar that this is essentially an energy crisis. If you take the amount of energy, amount of money that we have spent in procuring energy, or fossil fuel energy, over the last decade or 2 decades, you will find that the loans we have taken and all the money that has gone for, let's say, white elephant projects, all pale into insignificance. This started actually in '94 when, I'm sorry, this started in '96 when we had a power crisis. There was a drought, and as a result of the drought, we had a situation where the electricity was short and we had power cuts. The governments panicked and started buying uh, power from fuel and fossil fuel power plants and started giving out private contracts for purchasing of power. So this became, and this was very easy to do. You just had to negotiate a deal, and somebody would set up a power plant and supply you the electricity. So every government got into the habit of continuing to purchase power in this way, and nobody realized the danger that they were facing, because all your hard-earned foreign exchange was going to purchase energy. And if you look at the money that our biggest income is coming from the Middle East, workers in the Middle East, almost all of that money goes back out, purchase fuel for our power plants, and also, of course, our vehicles. And our vehicle uh, population has grown in enormous numbers. And as Dr. Ranit says, it's an addiction. Everybody wants to use a vehicle, everybody buys a vehicle, and the fuel is an addiction. So nobody has looked at it properly, because there was high confidence in the country. There was plenty of countries willing to lend to us, and we could go on a borrowing spree, and our politicians could go and borrow for their pet projects. And many of those projects, as we know, there are some of them, not many, but quite a few of them are white elephant projects. But there was no issue, because our credit rating was so good that we could borrow. But there was a time, we know, with the COVID, with the April 21 bombing, these events were events that set off the inherent weaknesses in our system. So the inherent weakness in our system is that we are spending all our money buying energy. So today, if you go out in Sri Lanka, what do you see? You see people lining up at gas stations. You see people lining up at cooking gas shops, and you see people out there with no electricity for a few hours a day. So this is all of it is based on fossil fuel energy. So the first thing that we had problem paying for is our fossil fuel. So this has to be corrected, and to correct it, you need serious commitment and serious investment from where the government has to recognize that you need to bring in investment into developing renewable energy sources and many other ways where we can wean ourselves from this energy addiction, fossil fuel addiction. So that's the crux, I think, of the economic crisis. And another reason why we got into this is because for the last 20 years we have not had a viable opposition. Our opposition, since '94, so I think we are coming up to almost 30 years. The opposition, the main conservative party has been in opposition, and the liberal and the left of center parties has been in government. So I'm not saying they should not be in government, but you always need a viable opposition to keep any government sharp in anything, whether it is a private company or any kind of competition. If you don't have serious competition, then the people in power starts to go bad. So we have not had a serious opposition. In 2015, the Rajapaksa government was defeated by a conspiracy. It was defeated by taking somebody from his own government as actually the secretary of the party, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, to run as a presidential candidate against President Rajapaksa. And then they broke a group of people from his party, the Conservative Party. All the minorities got together and defeated him. And then you had a government where it was made up of, part of them were from the left and part of them were from conservative. A very, very strange and unusual animal in the world of politics. And this did not go well for the government, did not go well for the country, because it was neither here nor there. You couldn't do what the conservative wanted to do, neither could you do what the socialists and the liberals wanted to do. So you had a government for nearly 5 years that was stagnant and could not go forward. So then it resulted in again a Rajapaksa government that came in 2019 with the election of President Gotabaya, and then also Mahinda Rajapaksa and all the Rajapaksa family came back to power. And as you know, what has happened from this crisis, this economic crisis, is that we have now demonized the Rajapaksas. So in this country now, Rajapaksa is a bad word, and this is a very dangerous thing, because if you demonize somebody, we have seen in history where we have demonized one group of people or one person, and it actually ends in a very, very dangerous situation. We have seen this in many, many countries in the world. So because with the demonizing of the Rajapaksas, today we have a situation where all politicians are demonized. And then if this continues, all people who have any assets or any means can be demonized. And you can have a situation where we end up in total anarchy. So this is a very dangerous situation that we are facing today. And I think our politicians need to wake up, and our country needs to wake up and understand the danger we are facing. I would like to take the situation that happened on the May 9th. There was, I think everyone has seen these incidents, but it was a very, very unfortunate incident, and the attack on the protesters was absolutely wrong and uncalled for. But the lesson there is the reaction that we got for that was that over 2 nights, 135 houses were razed to the ground, were set on fire. Now, this type of operation cannot be done unless you're highly organized and highly motivated and planned and ready for it. So this was something that I think should be a wake-up call for us, that we are facing a very serious situation that should be addressed. Fortunately, we have a situation where we have a new Prime Minister, Ranil Wickremesinghe, who has been Prime Minister before several times, and he is a steady hand in a crisis. So at the moment, I think the most important thing is that we need to build a stable and steady government around him, a strong government around him. At the moment, many of the political parties from all sides have joined him, but I think it is not enough. We need to ensure that some of the key individuals from the right and some of the key individuals from the left also must go into government with him, because this is a situation that needs to be looked at and supported.
Will you wrap up again?
That Prime Minister needs to be supported by all the political parties and all the people in Parliament to be able to take the very difficult decisions that he has to take. I have a lot of confidence that he can resolve this problem, but he needs the support. Unfortunately, in a way, it is unfortunate. In a way, it is also fortunate that he is just one man in his party in Parliament, which means that he has to make up a government from everyone else. There's no way that he can't make his own government without having the cooperation of everybody else, and it looks like he has now been able to achieve that. So I'm confident that he can make it work. So we need to support him and be there when the difficult decisions need to be taken. Thank you.
Wonderful, Mr. Pradeep. I think your consular experience has come good, and one man in the parliament and he becomes the prime minister. So everyone needs to support them, because Sri Lanka has to survive, not just for the heck of one family or someone, because we are not here to individually demonize anyone, because the show is also very clear. The channel's tagline is very clear: no enmity against individual nor animosity against any organization or parties. Issue as per rule of law, constitution, invoking evidential act, but in larger public interest, where transparency and accountability should be the key factor in any governance. That too, with public participation. When you do not have public in the decision making, these are the ways you will suffer, and unfortunately, the people of Sri Lanka are suffering. And in India also now it has become a very big uh, Sionic aspect. Are you going to be transparent and accountable, or you want to go Sri Lankan way? Now this has become a big issue worldwide, and that is why I'm telling you, World Economic Forum, we get invitations. Quad, they don't discuss anything such a serious matter. Where did you go wrong? Why did you go wrong? See, very clearly and beautifully explained by all of you. And it is a serious mismanagement, as he rightly put it across. This mismanagement should be dealt in again in a transparent way by having all political parties, because in a democracy we are represented by political representatives, political party but that doesn't mean that these people become extra constitutional. They should never grow beyond the country. Country is people. Every citizen is fundamental to the surviving aspects of any country. That lineage we should not disturb or destroy. That's why we say Sri Lanka is a big lesson. Next, is it Mas Yusuf? I think even our own Mayank, I think he has got some very good document. I think that should be an eye opener when we get into a discussion. Before I finish off, after I finish off with Mas Yusuf, I think I'll invite Mayank. Yes, Mas Yusuf ji. I think, come on, yeah,
Good evening.
good evening. But you show yourself. You show yourself. Yeah, last time also we had the same.
You're not able to see me?
Not yet, Yusuf ji. I'm sharing the camera request. You just click on that. You say share the camera.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we just see a light. Now I think you are coming clear. Yes. A bit more focus to your. You have shown your watch. Your fine. That is how, because you are also a friend of mine, a columnist. Because we need to show all our gadgets. Yeah.
Okay. There you go. All right. No, it's okay, correct?
Wonderful. Yes, Yusuf ji, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good evening, Dr. Prasad Reddy and everyone else in the panel. Nice to see all these faces again. And some of the new faces also. I would like to look at this from a constitutionalism point of view as a lawyer. So primarily, I would term Sri Lanka as currently politically bankrupt and economically bankrupt. Generally, the economic bankruptcy is what is widely spoken about, and less about political bankruptcy. We are also politically bankrupt. And let me take you through some of the points that would go to indicate why I make this assertion that we are politically bankrupt. Now, basically, any democracy, as we all know, is government by the people, for the people, and of the people. Now, in considering this concept of democracy, there is what is called a social contract theory that emerges between the people of the country and the government. To put it in very simple terms, it is like a contract of employment between an employer and an employee. Now, the employer employs his staff in anticipation of certain work from that person, in response to which he is compensated. So this is the contract. So this contract will have to be widened, deepened, and extended to what is called the social contract theory between people and the government. Now the people appoint a government in order to facilitate the government to take care of the welfare of the people. Now that is where this contract comes in. Now, where the government fails to take care of the welfare of the people, then there is a breach of this social contract theory. From this arises the question whether the government has a moral legitimacy to rule, because it has violated its contract. Now, if it is an employee in a company, you can terminate the services. It is not so easy to terminate the services of a government bureaucracy and the government itself. But from a moral point of view, this question can be raised whether there is a moral legitimacy for a government to rule over the people when it has failed to deliver to the people what the people expect from the government. Now we know in Sri Lanka at the moment, the government has led this country and the people to a state of economic bankruptcy. And as a consequence of the inefficiency and mismanagement of the government, there is inflation in the country, there is no basic essentials for the people, and everyone, practically everyone, is suffering. So the question is raised, does this government have the moral legitimacy to rule? Now, be that as it may, now we'll move on to another area in the constitution of Sri Lanka itself, where it says that sovereignty belongs to the people of Sri Lanka. So this is a very, very important constitutional concept where the entire power is in the people of Sri Lanka. And it is the people who use their power through the legislature. It is the people who use their power through the executive and through the legislature, the judiciary. Those are the three fundamental organs through which the people's power is being exercised. Now, when we come to the situation of the appointment of the Prime Minister, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, there is a constitutional issue here. That is, the President has the power to appoint the Prime Minister, no doubt. It is there. There is provision in the Constitution. But then, there are several other things that needs to be looked at from a constitutionalism point of view. And in fact, I have written on those lines, giving the cue to any interested constitutional lawyer to take it up with the Supreme Court, challenging the appointment of the Prime Minister. The issue whether this Prime Minister should be appointed or not, whether there is anyone else to be appointed or he's the best choice given the circumstances, all those things are up for debate. And speaking of the law, so the President himself is an elected representative of the people because the President is elected. Now, when the President is elected, he is supposed to act, he is supposed to take decisions, he is supposed to exercise the powers that is conferred by the Constitution on behalf of the people. So it is not his own decision making, but he is deciding on behalf of the people. Now, we have a situation in Sri Lanka where the people are telling the president to go home. So again, there is an issue of moral legitimacy. When people are rejecting the president himself, does he have the moral legitimacy to exercise the powers that people have given him? Because the people are saying, go away. We don't want you to exercise our powers. We don't want you to exercise our powers. So you go away. So this is a constitutional issue. Now what happens is, such a president goes and appoints a prime minister who does not have, under normal circumstances, under parliamentary conventions, a prime minister will be appointed, a prime minister who has a majority in the parliament will be appointed as the prime minister, which means he must have at least 113 seats in the parliament supporting him. And then, secondly, he also should have the confidence of the parliament. It is then that the prime minister is appointed. So it is such a person who has the majority in the house and also the confidence of the house that will be appointed as the prime minister. This is a conventional method. Of course, the executive presidency, under the executive presidency, he has the power to appoint the prime minister. Now, both these conventions have been violated. Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe does not have 113 seats. He has only his seat in parliament. This is the tragedy, and this is a comedy also. He's the only person from his party in the parliament. So he has no other person from his party supporting him. And then, as far as confidence of the parliament is concerned, obviously when he doesn't have anyone from his party, he has to rely on the other party members to guarantee that they have confidence in him. And it has not been put to test. Because of the 2/3 majority of the current government, they are banking on that. And they are going on the premise that he has the 2/3, he has the majority in parliament. Now, this is one of the loopholes of parliamentary democracy. This is one of the shortfalls, one of the drawbacks of parliamentary democracy, where the will of the people can be prostituted if you have a 2/3 majority. Then moving from there, we have this what is called the Aragalaya, that is the people's struggle. Now, they are looking for a government which is free from corruption and waste, which is devoid of nepotism, preferential treatment to the friends and families, and also discrimination. They are looking for fostering national unity, and they want a government free, absolutely free from the Rajapaksa clan, the Rajapaksa dynasty. They don't want any Rajapaksa name to be affiliated or connected with the government. And also, the three other important aspects of this struggle that the people are asking for is the recovery of the stolen assets, which will be free, and also prosecution of the Rajapaksas or who are bureaucrats who have been part and parcel leading and debating out of its financial resources. And finally, they are stressing for what is called a systems change. That means a system change for good governance. Now, with this situation in the background, currently we are in the stage of trying to pass through the 21st Amendment, which supposedly will bring in some of the will provide sufficient checks and balances in governance by the process of the independent commissions that could be appointed under the Constitution or and the Constitutional Council. Now, here also there is wrangling that is taking place now. Now, all these goes to show the moral legitimacy of this government and the prostitution of the two-thirds majority that the government is having, while the will of the people is being held to ransom. In this background, people are questioning whether Ranil is a suitable candidate from a political point of view. From a political point of view, whether Ranil is a suitable candidate to see through all of these things. It is doubted, suspected, questioned that Ranil is a pro-Rajapaksa person. Therefore, he may not go to the extent of prosecuting the Rajapaksas, etc. So this huge question mark also is there, covering the entire island. This huge question mark covers the entire island. So such a big question mark it is. So I will leave you with that background and the current situation politically and from a constitutional point of view. I thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. The doubting Thomases are always there in any country, and that is the beauty of democracy. You need to rein in doubting Thomases, and at the same time, this is what we have been demanding wherever I go, whichever country calls me. The recall facility should always be there because it should be public will, not the individual will. Whenever I write a document, I clearly state, is this a public will guaranteed by the constitutional guarantees? Are you guarded by constitutional guarantees? Is it public will? Will there be any transparency and accountability or not? Until and unless this is decided, because we have seen Yes Boss, such a famous play which you used to see, how Yes Boss, Ji Huzur have destroyed the best of the regimes because of the selfishness with which they promulgate everything. And as you rightly said, there is clearly a doubt. People are still suffering. Sri Lanka, they have doubts, reasonable doubts. One man army like Ranil Wickremesinghe, can he get them through? Can he be able to sustain, because he doesn't have anyone to support? But at the same time, at times this will be also be a blessing in disguise, as we have seen in India too. But at the same time, does he have that coercive spirit as an administrator? Because when he is going to take on the corruption, he has to fend with already the existing executive which has not been targeted still now in Sri Lanka. And believe me, this executive, as he has been doing during the pandemic, they may try to come home because it is a public will which has prevailed. There is no pandemic, nothing. Corona cannot be seen in Sri Lanka. That is what I am trying to say. It is the public will which has to come to the rule. Yes, Faisalji, I think you need to share the message of father who is unable to connect.
That's right. Everybody here can hear me, no?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. So Father Sarat wrote this piece and he couldn't deliver it because he's got a connection problem. The Father Sarat Indamagure is a liberation theologist who has spent the last almost 50, 60 years of his life in service to the public. So the crisis can be now observed in the long queues for fuel and gas. People have to stand in queues for long hours to get their basic needs. Already about 7 people have fallen dead in the queues. Also, we see the crying and weeping parents going here and there looking for essential foods and medicines for their children and elders. The media reported that a child has died because the parents could not find the medicines prescribed by the doctor. The country has gone bankrupt. The treasury has no dollars to buy the essential foods and medicines. Also, we have no way to pay back the loans. In addition to that, the income from exports is not enough to meet the cost of the imports. We do not have a production economy to generate income, but only a service economy. According to the governor of the central bank, the loans taken have been spent on projects to bring no income to the country. One clear example is the Nedum Tower in Colombo. There are several such projects. There is a conference hall being built in down south where no conferences are held. The cricket ground where cricket is not played, and an airport where planes don't land. Due to the crisis, the fishermen have stopped going to sea because they have no oil and farmers have stopped farming because they have no fertilizer. The actual issue that we have in the country is the corrupt and inefficient leadership, which knows only how to rob national wealth out of the country, and the businessmen who have not paid billions that they have borrowed from the state banks. Unfortunately, most of those whom we have elected as our representatives do not know what their role is in parliament. What they know best is how to rob public wealth. The people have to be blamed for electing such characters as their representatives. A large number of our citizens have realized that the present political leadership have proved to be a disaster and therefore are searching for an alternative leadership, I beg your pardon. In my view, none of those traditionally dominant parties can be trusted any longer. They have themselves contributed to the creation of the present crisis. As such, the citizens, the young and the old, are demanding that the leaders must step down, because in their view, the present leaders are the cause of the crisis. Some of our youth, as they see no solution in sight, they are in their thousands trying to leave the country. The situation now shows that we are affected not only by an economic bankruptcy, but also by a political bankruptcy. The former Prime Minister was forced to resign, and then the President called Ranil, who is a family friend of the Rajapaksas, to take over the premiership. Strangely, he is a leader of a party which could not secure even a single seat in Parliament during the last election and came to Parliament on a list only after about a year. The failure to win a single seat in the last election shows that he is a leader in whom the people have no confidence. The recent attack on the protesting youth by the political gangsters brought from outside is a sign to indicate the kind of undemocratic rule that prevails in the country. There is a further danger that the country is moving towards a military form of government. Thank you.
Yeah, now we will, before I invite Mayank, I think it's a dangerous thing which you have already, Father has really sensing something. Is it going to be another military regime in this region? That is very sorry state of affairs if that happens. We have seen Myanmar and what is happening in Pakistan and other countries, Afghanistan and all. If democracy goes, people cannot survive, believe me. It will be the end of this planet. It is the spirit of the people, and that is why we are trying to bring out awareness. People should become strong. People should know that they are the ultimate authority. Right from Prime Minister to Chief Minister, they're all public servants. See, people are dying for lack of food. The same thing is happening in India. In our own Telangana example, they are constructing huge dams. On the other side, even in the rural areas, the land is being taken away in the name of real estate development. The land rates have increased. See the irony. People are not understanding. Lakhs of rupees, crores of rupees there on the dam. What will they will go for? Political donations. And here again, they are trying to entice people to sell away their lands. That amount they will try to buy and keep, and people will become enslaved in their own lands. As Father has really pointed out, the attacks on the people protesting youngsters is a very shabby state of rule, and I hope Sri Lanka should sit down and there should be a democratic rule, majority, as he rightly said, Mr. Yusuf, in a parliamentary form of democracy, it should be the majority. They should call a parliament session, there should be a majority, and before that, these fellows who are there in World Economic Forum or Quad, whoever, wherever who are, with due respects to them, first announce a serious package for Sri Lankans. Defer debts. Let that be investigated. Why so much of debt has been given in such projects which could not invite any sort of, give back. Let that be investigated. But all the loans, debt should be deferred for time being. First, they should see that every Sri Lankan survives. No one dies for want of food or medicine. Let them live with dignity. This is what we should convey to the world. All these big players, what the hell they are doing? So many days into it, still people are fighting. A sort of semblance of democracy should prevail, and we should all contribute to this so that this will not go away from the democracy. Yes, Mayank, I think you have a presentation before we open up for a discussion. I think we have been joined by Imran, Rajabdeen, as well as Jessica. Mathis, you put out your videos. I mean, that would be better so that we can enjoy interacting with each other. Those entities will be much better. Yes, Mayank, shall I make you a presenter?
No, I'm just going to speak for some time. You just
Yeah,
don't
go
have
ahead.
a ready presentation.
Yeah.
I was just making mental notes of whatever. I joined halfway through. I'm sorry. If you can just help me understand who the other panelists are. I've heard Mr. Pradeep Jayawardene made a mental note of his points, but I couldn't hear the speakers before him.
Before that, they were very categorical and clear. It is because of the fossil fuel energies and the climate change which has been happening, destroying the mass photosynthesis, which is quintessential for the survival. So that is the reason why all these things are happening. And then our first speaker was very categorical and clear as to why they got into this debt-ridden situation by investing in unwanted and wherein the public participation was never there. And how could a lender be so liberal, go on funding without understanding whether they can make a recovery? It is nothing but making fun of these things. And he was very categorical and clear, stating that if the governance is for only 5 years, how is that even beyond 5 years these debts continue? So, those politicians who are part of borrowing, along with the executives who were part of it, should be criminally prosecuted. Yes, Mike.
All right. So, I just want to ask the question. When I'm totally empathize with people of Sri Lanka. My heart goes out to the people of Sri Lanka and also to the people of India, because it may be a repeat telecast here very soon. We are 6 months behind in timelines of what's happening globally happens in India after 6 months. Hopefully, we can all avert it, and that is the attempt. That is why we are coming together to discuss. So my question is, should we do an introspection, or we should just fill the gaps? Like we can spend half an hour, 1 hour talking, and then we can get on with our lives, or should we really use this time to introspect? Can we have a no holds barred conversation, or there are certain no go areas in this conversation?
You are free to discuss, because we discuss, debate, so that decisions are made. That is the beauty of democracy. We are all open, and even our Pradeep ji wants to answer Mas Yusuf also. I am asking him to be ready after you. Let us all discuss, debate. That is the beauty of democracy, because today Sri Lanka, our own brethren, fellow citizens are in trouble. Tomorrow it may happen to us. If you don't discuss it in a transparent way, as you rightly said, we have been marking some states, including the Telangana, from where I am making, from then even from where you are there. How these blue-eyed boys. Yeah. Go ahead.
So let's understand this. We use the word precious currency, precious foreign currency. Do we understand that it is not precious anymore? 1970 onwards, there is no gold reserve for currency. Is it something that we have considered in our understanding, in our worldview? Currency is printed on thin air. It's fractional reserve banking. These are nice words, but it's actually just printing of notes. Last 2 years, 40% of the available dollars were just printed. 40% of the world's available dollars was just printed out of thin air. So if you're going to print so much of currency, this has to be inflation. So can we understand that it's very simple to just blame the people, okay? We cannot blame the people for choosing the wrong leaders. There's nothing called wrong leaders, okay? We are choosing leaders, and then finally these leaders don't exist in silos anymore. We are part of what is called the centralized economy, okay? Where if Biden sneezes in US, Sri Lanka can catch cold in, Sri Lankans can catch cold there. we are all very, it's like a tug of war. Centralized economy is like a tug of war for basic survival. This is not the way we ought to be organized as human society. Okay, for food and shelter, we shouldn't be able to, we shouldn't be depending on anybody other than ourselves. Centralization should only be for cultural exchange. Okay, so whatever we are seeing which is centralized in nature is deliberately made to destroy. All the countries were forced to take these loans for unnecessary projects, and there is no question of returns. When you print so much of currency, all calculation of returns will anyways go for a toss. So even if they had put the money on projects with returns, those will be with returns only on paper. Okay, so there's nothing called returns here. You cannot be printing so much of currency. So all these centralized bankers actually are controlled by the BIS, the Banking International Settlement, and all the countries are, the governments are deliberately shown to be failing. Okay, so that finally the people will accept the new world order. This is the elephant in the room. Okay, the WHO pandemic treaty is being discussed, I guess. Okay, in the 75th World Health Assembly. So this is a deliberate attempt to help all the, or make all these governments to fail under what is called the economic slavery or economic collapse. Okay, so that people will accept these global one world order. And because obviously, right, why did they keep on pumping money? Okay, and how can it be debt when currency is being freely printed? How can that be debt? It has no economic value. So first thing that Sri Lanka has to do is to cancel all the debts, because the full disclosure was not made about the currency printed. So cancel all the debts, because that is not currency, it is scam. And all the people that acted for those currencies in the position of office are victims of the scam, because they were made to believe that the currency has value. So they're all victims. All the people who were in offices of power and who signed up for this currency which came in to be treated as something of very value, and for which they offered the resources of their country. Okay, these are all victims of the currency scam. So Sri Lanka is a rich heritage. These are people that should be proud of their rich heritage. They know how to grow food in their lands. They know how their own body is itself the greatest pharmacy. They don't need to line up for medicines. They can create their own energy using biogas, their own whatever they organic produce that they make, which they can eat, and then the leftovers can be converted back to biogas. They need this. See, all these centralized systems are being made to crash for some one world government, but the one world government will not happen, because the people of various countries will seize the power and they will get back to decentralization. Okay, that is now. Now we have a problem, right? Whatever is already created by the divine consciousness, we try to recreate it as if something is wrong with it. So we need a global system which is already there, and we call it anarchy. No, sorry, this is organized anarchy in the name of centralization. This organized anarchy is going to crash. People will rise, people will organize themselves, they will recognize their sovereignty, they will recognize that they have been duped for centuries. We, the people of Sri Lanka in India, this region, we are very rich people. We live in temperate areas which are permanent rainforests. We don't need anything from any other country, any other region, where they live in sub-zero climates or very extreme climates. This is the area which is rich in free economy, in resources. And resources are not meant to be converted into the methods of centralized economy, because they are not self-sustainable. Cement structures, concrete structures, they're not self-sustainable. even solar panels are not sustainable. We, the people of this region, are already self-sustainable, and that self-sustainability is being destroyed in the name of development, which is not self-sustainable. There is no other solution but to grow your own food in your balcony, in your terrace, in your community farm, or in your local land. To grow your own energy and not to line up for these things. There is no other solution. For everything else, we are centralized. Yes, we love each other. We appreciate each other's cultures, dance, music, arts, architecture, great. But for your food and shelter, it should be de-linked from currency, especially when it is not a currency altogether. We are fooling ourselves by getting into these discussions and finding a solution in these discussions. The moment the role of government is reduced only to sharing of best practices, it doesn't matter who comes to power, because first of all, we never chose anyone to rule us anyways. I'm sorry. We are our own rulers. My body, my choice, my life. I don't vote for anybody, and I don't want anyone to vote for me. We have to stop behaving like kindergarten kids. We have to stand up for our own survival, and for thriving, we can be centralized. Everything else is an intellectual discussion.
Yeah. That's
Thank you
good.
so much.
That's good. That's what we keep saying, because every citizen is a constitutional authority by himself, and this pandemic is also exposed. That's why, as a doctor by profession, we keep telling people, when we send people papers for publication in British Medical Journal, they don't publish. Decades back, we said I treated people with placebo and I had enormous patience. Though the people outside waiting, they were shouting at me, "How the hell you take so much of time?" And I said, with proper counseling and placebo, we could get over so many diseases. They did not publish. And again, see diabetes. I'm giving you an example. The other day we have come out diabetes cure without any medicines, because it is a metabolic disorder. The food which is grown in your area, you start eating, and whatever lifestyles you have, you behave accordingly. And being a metabolic disorder, the parameters keep changing within your own self in a given situation in the entire day. Then how can you have a common governed parameters, whether it is diabetes or hypertension? We have already exposed diabetes, and my economy has gone down further, as you rightly said, and we are going to come up with hypertension. That is why we said the self-sustenance, the staple food, or your environs where you survive, you need to know and you need to protect, so that even your children will learn from it, so you are safeguarded. So any misadventure in the form of corporate destruction or external influences will not have much to, but at the same time, we ourselves allow, because of the propped up media. Now we have these channels, because thanks to this type of pandemic, and even hitherto before also I used to participate. Now I am able to connect, see so many from Sri Lanka. You are able to express the beauty of democracy. It is people participatory, and it should be public will. Public will prevail when individually you understand what you are and how you are surviving, and what are your resources and what is that you need. Then public will. If these things are understood by citizens of the world, no dictator or even for that military can do anything to you. So as has been happening in Sri Lanka, unfortunately for the pandemics, there is no corona now, no monkeypox, except the survival, the food, and the vital necessities. That is what public will is all about. Yes, Pradeep ji, yeah, Mayank.
Just one last point.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, these are very transformative times. Okay, something is collapsing.
Someone is trying to play their YouTube is on. After this, Pradeep ji,
Yeah.
after Mayank makes his,
Yeah, just
Yeah,
a
Mike.
short, just a short one.
yeah, go ahead, Mayank, go ahead.
Yeah, we are going through times of great upheaval, and everything that we have known is collapsing. Okay, so obviously it looks very grim situation, but I would say there's a silver lining here. All isms all centralized systems are collapsing so that people can take back the power of their sovereignty, of their autonomy, and they can create self-sustainable lifestyles from this point onwards. So if the fear of corona and monkeypox is gone, that's a welcome move development. Okay, yeah, absolutely. So I, you know, I'm like surprised to see people from Sri Lanka in this panel looking very grim. I actually want to congratulate you, all your people, that you guys have are leaders. You are the first bird in the pack of birds. You're facing the heat directly, and you have the Sri Lankans have shown the power of the people, and they have set a benchmark for us. We need to help the centralized systems collapse even better and smoother, so that we can usher ourselves into the age of decentralization,
Yeah.
into an age of self-sustainability.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
We salute Sri
Encourage
Lankans. Yeah. We salute Sri Lankans' courage, and that is why so many wonderful friends are participating from Sri Lanka. Yeah, Pradeep ji, please go ahead.
Yes, I want to reply to something that Mas Yusuf said about the fact that Sri Lanka is both bankrupt economically and politically. I disagree with that, as I said that even before in my talk before. We are not bankrupt economically because our assets.
Pradeep ji, I think there is YouTube being Pradeep ji. 1 second, there is YouTube being played at your end. Maybe your daughter, ask her to just reduce the volume.
It is not. I don't think she's on at all. She's.
But who is playing?
Coming from somewhere else.
1 second. Is it Imran is not there? Someone? Yes, sir. Go ahead. Jessica, I think Jessica Matthews, you open your video, please. Jessica Matthews, I have sent you as a camera request. Open your video. Yes, Pradeep ji, go ahead.
Pradeep, maybe
So what I would like to say is that
browser
we are not bankrupt either economically, because our assets are far outweigh our debt at the moment. It's just that we have got ourselves into economic crisis by mismanaging our finances. Also politically, the best example in that we are not bankrupt is that we have been able to, within our system, despite the fact that we are tremendous political pressure coming from the people, where we have had the entire cabinet and the prime minister, former prime minister, resign. We have got a new prime minister and a new cabinet in place within about a week, and they are back in business. So that itself is proof that politically we are not bankrupt.
Jessica Matthews, I have sent you as a camera request. Open your video.
I also want to say that there was some inaccuracy in what Mr. Yusuf said. He said that the prime minister has to have a majority in parliament to be appointed. That is not correct. The president has to decide that he has to have the confidence of parliament. Whether he has a majority in parliament or not has to be tested. And until it is tested and proven that he does not have the majority in parliament, he can carry on. So that is a parliamentary system. That is the way it has worked from the beginning of the parliamentary system. It may be good, it may be bad, we may not like it, but that is a system that works. Also, I think Mr. Yusuf spoke about the social contract, and that if the social contract is no longer there, the leaders must go. Unfortunately, we have a system in place to do that, and it is called voting. If the people believe that this person has to go, they have the chance to get him out at the next election. You can vote him out. That is a system in place. If you change that system, you have to start having an anarchy. That means revolution is acceptable to change your government. That is not acceptable. That is not democracy. Unfortunately, democracy only allows changing of your government by the vote. So if the government is not popular and if the government has failed, the people have the choice. At the moment, the people have voted the government in place, president into office, and until that period of time ends, he has the contract and the mandate to keep uh, staying in his position. So I don't accept the fact that he has lost his social contract. And yes, there is a lot of opposition to him and there's a lot of agitation to change him. But just because there is agitation does not mean that the people are against him. Who is the people? The people's will has to be tested. You can't just change something just because social media says this person is not the right person. So you can't have that. If you go to that, you will have complete chaos and anarchy. So fortunately, we have a strong enough system to allow that to happen. So I want to make those two very strong points. And the appointment of the Prime Minister, Ranil Wickremesinghe himself, the first offer was made to the leader of the opposition Sajid Premadas. He did not accept it. Then the president offered this to Ranil Wickremesinghe because he was the person that he felt had the confidence of Parliament. And up to now, it has proved to be correct. He is not tested yet. He may lose it in the test, but so far there is no serious challenge has come to Ranil Wickremesinghe. Nobody has stepped forward and said, "No, I am the Prime Minister. I'm not Ranil." It has not happened. So until that happens, the decision is correct. You cannot question that decision. So I want to make those 2 points. So it should not be distorted and said that the will of the people and this is not democracy and this is democracy. Whether we like it or not, this is the way democracy works. If we don't like it, then we need to go and change the system. But nobody has invented a better system yet. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a valid point
I
because.
just wanted to respond.
Yeah. One
I just
second.
wanted to
One
respond.
second. Yeah, 1 second, Mayank. I think Ranil. After Ranil, I think you chip in. Ranil ji, because there should be a recall facility. This is what we are demanding, Mr. Pradeep. They can't continue to go away for 4 years or 5 years. Even in German, also when I was called in,
Well,
you need to have a
Can
checks
I?
and balances wherein you can have a recall facility by the elected voters, wherein you say whether it is referendum or something, the voters have a choice. If he is not performing as per the expectations of the people as promised by the political parties when they go for elections after winning, divergently if they move away, as you rightly said, the recall facility should be there with the the voters who have elected them. Yeah, with this I'll come to you on that, Mr. Pradeep. I'll take Ranil's. You be prepared for that also because you are a consultant. A lot of things should come out of you. Yes, Ranil ji. After that we'll go to
Yeah.
Mayank. Yeah.
You're right. Now, I'd like to share something with you guys. All of us sitting here talking, we represent a certain age group. I visited the Aragalaya many times, means in revolution. I spoke to many of those people. They are kids. They are organizing themselves. They got idea. We are old hacks. We are responsible for what they are suffering today. And we are pontificating about systems, why we must follow a certain system, why we can't. People are starving. People are dying.
That's
If that is so, if the system says the system must stay, it doesn't matter if the people starve or die or whatever, you're going to wait so much. That is rubbish. Total.
yes.
No, I totally disagree with
Absolutely.
that. And I agree with the children. I mean, no, sorry, not to me, they're children, but with the kids who are out there doing the Aragali, they want a total system. They don't believe in us anymore. They don't believe in the political system anymore because, for instance, Ranil Wickremesinghe. Hey, I'll tell you guys something else. You know that fellow Ranil Wickremesinghe? He was named after me. He carries my name. My mother told me that. I swear. Right. And he has disgraced my bloody name. I swear. He's done everything totally diametrically opposite to what I would do in my life. I'm ashamed of that man. And also, he's been from this 6 times. Look at where the country has been. Where the hell has he brought us? It's nuts. I mean, okay, forget that bloody thing. Anyway,
Right.
shit, we need a system change. I agree.
Right.
Then that's-
Right.
then
You have
that's the-
become
we should
you,
support the Aragalaya,
Yeah, yeah.
support the kids.
yeah, you have become very emotional. But the thing is, we need someone to govern. And even when the leader of opposition was invited, this we were not knowing. When they could come forward, they could not come forward. There should be an order in the society. There cannot be anarchy, and lawlessness in the name of anything will go against your own survival. And yes, Ranjan De Silva ji, and after that Faisal, and then Mayank. I think you need to wait because you need to chip in now. You listen to them. I think you have one thing. Yeah, Ranjanji. Please, Ranjan.
Thank you, Prasad.
Yeah.
In the, it is now reference was made uh, to the election of Mr. Ranil, selection of Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe as the Prime Minister. He had only one seat in Parliament. We are talking of majority rule. There are certain conventions, procedures governing democracy and the procedures that have to be followed for justice and fairness. The practice is well-established practice is when a prime minister resigns, the well-established practice is for the president to select a person who has the majority in parliament, the one who has the leader of the party that has the most number of seats in parliament. Now, in this case, we have uh, the person who had the least number of votes in parliament being called upon to form the government. Actually, Sri Lanka is going to remain in the Guinness Book of Records forever. Sri Lanka will remain in the Guinness, and no other country will ever beat this. You see, we have the head of state selecting a man who led a party, and that party never won a single seat. And he also lost his own seat. And because of an aberration in the constitution, he became an MP thanks to a bonus seat. So the people of this country have absolutely rejected him. Absolutely. And I tell you, you see, we are going to be, Sri Lanka is going to be in the Guinness Book of Records. No other country will beat this record. And as long as the Guinness Book of Records exists, Sri Lanka will remain in that Guinness Book.
Okay.
I take any bet, no other country, not even in dark Africa, you see, will be able to beat our achievement within inverted commas.
Right.
So
That's,
I don't know how anyone
I know.
can defend.
I know.
How anyone can. There are so many other things. I think time is running out.
Yes,
but
yes.
I thought I will stop here.
Wonderful. Good point you made. Good point you made. Even the recall facility should be there. But the man who commands majority should be the one to rule, and that too in such a crisis situation. But here, the opposition leader, when he was invited, he denied up this thing. But instead of Ranil Wickremesinghe, as you rightly said, when he was rejected by the country, was there no better option? A people government ruled by people only. Can't we have some good people from the society selected, and so that they can always rule in a transparent and accountable way, from away from all these political moorings? Yes, Faisal, you wanted to contribute something before I ask Mayank, and then Pradeep ji will come in.
Uh, yeah. No, but I don't know what to talk about really now. You covered most of the things. The main point was that Ranil Wickremesinghe was not elected to parliament. He came in on the national list because of a bonus seat, because of a number of, because of proportional representation system we have in Sri Lanka, where if you get a certain amount of votes, your party gets a certain amount of votes, you get a bonus seat, even if you don't get an actual seat in the election. So so he came into parliament through the back door, having failed miserably, having destroyed the oldest political party in this country to such an extent where I did not win even a single seat in the last general election. And then this man let's talk some real politics here, okay? Do we really understand who this man works for? I mean, who his bosses are? If you take the book, the debt that the LTT owes the US, for some reason now I can't remember. Gamage, I think wrote the book. Gamage. He was the information officer at the US Embassy throughout the war period. And in that book he says that in the 1983 riots, during the 1983 riots, Ranil Wickremesinghe spent the entire 2 weeks of the riots ensconced with Richard Armitage of the Heritage Foundation from the US. Okay, that is in the 80s. That's in that book. In Sri Lanka, the arrogance of power, Ranjan Hool points out to many discrepancies from speeches given in Parliament and in newspaper reports about the activities of Wickremesinghe during that period. These are all published documents. I don't have to hide any of this stuff. And I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said before. Then we have the end of the LTT war, which the insurgency war, whatever you want to call it. But whatever it was, uh, during the end of that war, uh, uh, um, uh, the the American government forced the United Nations to accuse the Sri Lankan government of war crimes to at the end of the last battle of the war. Okay. Now, in the meantime, their citizen, who happens to now be the prime minister of the president of this country, is going up and down and as an American citizen at the time, not a Sri Lankan citizen, going up and down to the U.S., back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and he is never interfered with. Although the Americans have the Foreign War Crimes Act, okay, which they're prosecuting Sri Lanka for war crimes in Geneva, while our Secretary of Defense, who prosecuted the war, is going up and down quite freely and not in any way at all
Right.
chastised.
So that's an
Okay, now
important.
then you have the next
Yeah,
the
that's it.
next
That's
the
important.
next
That's an that.
situation now you have
No, no, no.
is that the recent in sorry
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I thought you were
in
asking
the
next speak.
recent No, in the recent sort of like struggle or the revolution where the person was killed, I was very amused. Or actually, it was like a marker of it. The American ambassador almost immediately made a statement saying that this should be investigated and there should be transparency in this investigation.
Oh,
Now, this is a man who, the former ambassador for America, came before the elections, the presidential elections, and had a big meeting in a big hotel in Colombo, met all the big business leaders of Sri Lanka, all the corporate crony capitalists of the
yeah.
country who have a lot to do and lot to do with the current situation that we're in now is to do with a lot to do with crony capitalism of Sri Lanka's corporate sector. That's a separate issue. But this guy, Robert Blake, who was the ambassador during the end of the war period, he just brought in and he gave a big speech and said, everybody, just vote for Gotaba Rajapaksa. He has all the answers for you. And he's putting this. So now this man who they have put into power in some way and have supported in whatever way form is now suddenly, in this recent time, he's being toppled now, because at the moment, we know the National Endowment for Democracy is obviously behind some of the protests that these organizations of God face. We can see very much that there must be a Soros hand in this somewhere, because all of these people who are involved have always been in the social media monitoring and all of these things kind of organizations, so we know where they're coming from. So the bottom line that you're getting here is, why suddenly are they upsetting the apple cart and now throwing this guy out? It's something like what happened to the Shah, right? Suddenly, like, your usefulness to the U.S. Disappears, and then you better go. Don't stay. Get the hell out of here. So it's a similar situation, and I thought to myself, the only way this makes sense is if somehow the hell they engineer Ranil Wickremesinghe to become the prime minister. There's no other reason for doing this, but it doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever. And boy, I wasn't surprised when it finally happened. So this is we're talking geopolitics here. Where India and China and all of these guys are playing a major double game with everybody. They have got BRICS on one side, they have the Shanghai Cooperative Organization on the other side. They're all involved in the Belt Road Initiative, etc., etc. So, I mean, uh, what's happening right now is that little Sri Lanka is being globalized. And despite the fact that none of us in this country, I mean, the majority of the people in this country do not want to be globalized. And the majority of the people in this country are the traditional fishers and farmers who just want to be left alone to get on with the traditional life. So, what is this democracy that any one of you are talking about? When for the last 100 years or 200 years, our traditional people have not been allowed to live traditional lives. And with that, the loss of our organic seeds, our seed legacy seed stocks, the loss of our ancient practices, the loss of our ancient wisdom, and the loss of knowing how to behave properly, which was the essence of this country. Where even today, everybody asks you, Gamakoi, this is where are you from? What is your village? What is the name of your village? Everybody has to have a village. Everybody has to come from somewhere. Because if you don't come from somewhere, it means that you have broken faith with your village. And therefore you are what we would call Rodi or Aikuntika. You have been sent out because you have broken faith. You are not trustworthy. So this we knew how to do this, and we knew it very, very well. And for 5,000 years we knew this. So 500 years of colonization, has destroyed the Sinhala people and the Sri Lankan way of life, because we are still suffering from this post-colonial trauma, and you can call it neoliberalism, you can call it anything else, an extractive economy system which removes the resources from the poor countries and gives it to the rich, simply because, as Mike said, they have a Ponzi scheme going with a printed money system, which is not backed by anything. And we are forced into this. I want to just wrap up quickly with a story about the Prophet, and maybe some of you will understand it. It's a little bit. If you understand the basis that it is the people who do the work who create the value, and the value has to be assigned equally. So the Prophet had a guy, a man who called Bilal, who was his slave who he had freed, but who continued to work with him. And so one day Bilal brought the Prophet and gave the Prophet some dates to eat. And the Prophet said, "Wow, Bilal, these are wonderful dates. Where did you get these dates from?" He said, "Well, Prophet, I gave 2 of our dates and I got one of these dates." He said, "Then Bilal, I can't eat. It's riba. It's forbidden. It's usury." He said, "But Prophet, in the marketplace, these dates are twice as expensive as our dates." He said, "Then take your dates to market, sell your dates, and with that money buy those dates. Like can only be exchanged for like. Because there is no, a date can be a date. It can be salty. It could be sour. It could be, it could be firm. It could be sweet. There are so many different types of dates. So the market sets the price for the dates. But a date is a date is a date. If you're exchanging dates for dates, you have to do 1-to-1. There's no way. The same way with human beings. People who do the work create the value. And in today's world, where we have instant feedback and we have automatic methods of assigning value directly, we do not need this system of taxation and debt, the racket, that scam that they're using to do, because technology has now made all of those systems redundant. Now we're looking at the 21st century and we're using systems that came from 500 years ago. It's ridiculous. I think I've spoken too much, but I'm much more than my 10 minutes. Sorry, Dr. Prasad.
No. You have made a valid point, because life for life and all this thing is nonsense. That's why when I was trying to make something, my even Apple equipment is blocked. I said it's a blessing in disguise for this pandemic. I said all software, if they are giving 100% working from home, why the hell you should have such big concrete jungles? And why should you take away those resources? Let there be forestation. Let people farm there, and you can meet once in a while in a small bungalow. You have a group meetings. So why do you need? And then because you transport them from here to your office, carbon emissions, right? Maybe the people say you are taking away the bread and butter of someone. that bread and butter be created. You, instead of those concrete jungles, you allow these people to farm, do something in that, a creative activity very close to the nature, so that we can all survive in a better way. So all these things will become redundant, as Mayank was pointing out. Why should you have an artificial type of economic activity in the name of software? So much of money. Again, that money they are going to invest in with through banks. They will fund only them. Invest in real estates, improve this thing, or else in shares. So like that, you are moving away from your need to a greed wherein, as a human, your existence, you are challenging your own self, your own existence. So that is the pitiable state. That is how these corporates are going to exploit you. First health, then employment, then your identity crisis. Because we say in India, Ayurveda, naturopathy, our kitchen is our medicine, our food is our medicine. Similar way Sri Lanka is. Then why the hell you need the external supplements, whether it is vitamins, minerals? Why the hell you need drug at all? Once you understand what you are. Pradeep ji, before I go to Mayank, you wanted to make some point. And Jessica, I think you need to open up, you open your video, and then Imran also. Do open up your videos, and you want to. Yes, Pradeep ji.
Dr. Reddy, I want an opportunity to respond to Pradeep, please.
Yeah, in a
Thank
holistic
you.
way. Once he finishes this, then you respond.
Yeah.
Or else you want to speak after
Thank
Yusuf ji. Pradeep ji, you want to speak now or after Yusuf responds?
Let me because I think some important points that
Please
Faisal
go ahead,
came
go
up
ahead.
with that
Go ahead.
we need to talk about.
Go ahead.
I think Faisal spoke about the sustainability and going back to the just 1 minute, going back to the traditional methods of agriculture. I think with 22 million population, that traditional methods are going to be difficult. So I don't agree that what we are doing is correct. We need to find a new way of how we are going to do agriculture and support population of 22 million.
Yeah, one after the other. I think Faisal, I think you can respond once
I
you.
have to interrupt. No, but that's not what I said. I didn't
Can you
talk
hear?
about going back to the ancient traditional methods. I talk about our traditional institutions.
Okay.
You know, the institutions
Yes,
that we have to reinvent it in a new synthesis of old and new. There's no question of going back. Going back to
The
the
institutions were based on the agriculture at that time, and how do we support the population of 22 million without the practices that we are doing now? Even that is not sufficient. So we have to think of. I'm open to it, and I think that this is for
Open
separate
for
discussion.
Yeah.
Also, you talked about the American and the foreign power influence. Certainly, we are caught in the power play of the foreign powers. Unfortunately, we have to play that game. I am the grandson of President J.R. Jawadana, who was called Yankee Dick because of his closeness to America. So this Yankee Dick created a country which was self-sufficient in both energy and food in the 80s. So he used the American context. He used the Western influence. He got very, very concessionary loan and grant terms to do the largest food and energy project in Sri Lanka, the Mahaveli project. So there is a way that you can deal with the foreign influence, foreign powers, and use it to your advantage. So I will leave it at that, because I think if you talk about the American influence, this will go on for.
No.
we need a
You have made your point. You have
separate-
made your point. But
And
here you have
one-
made.
Yeah, one more thing with regard to Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe being appointed as Prime Minister. I have not been a fan of Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe's politics for a long time, but right now, nobody has any doubt that he is the right man to pull out of this crisis. Nobody has any serious doubt. Nobody stepped forward to take it, and nobody has any doubt.
Right.
To ask about his credentials is like asking the fireman who has come to your house to put out your fire what his credentials are. You don't have time for that.
Right.
You just have to
Yeah.
get him and work with him and put out your fire.
Wonderful,
Thank you.
wonderful. And here I would like to correct you, and also Being a doctor myself, and I'm officially trained in vermicompost and all the organic bank, long back I've implemented projects. Chemicalization of agriculture, hybridization of seeds is your worst enemy. Keep this in your mind, Mr. Pradeep Jayawardene, because I have got highest regards for your Jayawardene, and I'll tell you why. Because he stood ground, as you rightly said, he allowed the investments and the technology to come, but he never deviated from the established norms of the Sri Lankan society. That is where we were valuing him, because we had nicknames calling your grandfather in school times and all, because I come from a though politically sensitive family, but we had this farming background. They were all noted because Sri Lankan radio was very famous, Binaka Geetmala and all. So we used to listen and we used to name. As a doctor, I'll tell you, I just gave a paper to the Americans why they are suffering with the cancers, the lower intestinal cancers. You eat something which is not natural, your stomach will reject. You don't listen. You put antacid. Now it has come out that they are the cancerous agents, which you have been telling right from there. Then after that, again your stomach rejects. You don't listen. You go for supplements because you become weak. Even then it will say, try to understand me, your stomach is saying to your body and mind. Instead, what you do, you have this junk food, and with that, cold drinks you try to drink, because the first stage of stomach needs pH below 5, only hot drinks. That is why I am son-in-law of Kerala. Chudu Vellam concept is very famous there. When you follow all these things, and that too with genome, all those GM foodstuffs, you move away from which is not at all natural, your stomach will reject, and your survival, though you look bloated and everything, you are not the same. We have presented papers on this also. So the native foodstuffs, as you rightly said, when population is growing, first thing is you stop population explosion. The second aspect is you invent your own ways, borrowing the technologies, understanding them, to see that you don't spoil your own basic native resource, and that is the source of all the spirit of your survival. Yes, Pradeep ji, after that I'll go to Mas Yusuf. You want to make anything, or let Yusuf talk, after that you'll speak?
No, I agree. I think we need to find a way, and there's a lot of technology out there that is still at the early phase, have not been adopted from our scale. And I think maybe Sri Lanka is now one of the best places to test them out, because we have completely stopped fertilizer for some time. Even though we have gone back now, reversed our policy, we no longer have the money to buy chemical fertilizer, which is important.
You should not.
We have,
You should not. That is where let us all support the Sri Lankan way of organic farming. That is what they are trying to present to the world. Sri Lanka shifted to organic farming. That is why they are into this state. But that is not. You are still healthy. I see you are all healthy because of that organic food. And again, they want to put this chemicalization of agriculture, hybridization of seeds, so that this crony or whatever you say pandemic keep on coming onto your minds. That's why we are much better. Yeah, I'll come to you, Ranilji. Then Mas Yusuf will, because he's been waiting.
yeah, please. I'm very happy if more people come and help us with it, because I think lots of experiments are going on right now. A lot of people are putting their effort and their energy and their innovation into practice to try to grow food. I think you'll see a big change in Sri Lanka over the next few years.
Yeah, definitely. Mas Yusuf, I think you have been waiting for a long.
Yeah, thank you very much. This a couple of clarifications on what Pradeep said. First of all, I was speaking about the 113 majority and confidence of the members, the parliament, etc. I said that these all parliamentary conventions, and I also stressed very specifically that the president has the power to appoint the prime minister, because that's the constitution. So there was no distortion. There was no distortion there. Secondly, constitution is something that should not be bypassed to undermine the sovereignty of the people, because the sovereignty of the people is the backbone, the foundation of the constitution, and that sovereignty is inalienable sovereignty. So people are sovereign, and then also the constitution. We have to make sure that there is no erosion of constitutional principles and there is no erosion of the spirit of constitutionalism. This is very, very important in a democracy.
Yes.
And then the president is elected by the people. When the president is elected by the people, he is elected to exercise the power of the people. And the president, in the exercise of the power of the people, he has to exercise it with lot of diligence, and he is accountable to the people for what he does. And in this case, we see that the president and his government has failed the people. And now the people have come to the situation where they say that you have failed in your duty, you have not delivered, you have not exercised the power that we have delegated to you in the manner that we expected you to deliver to us.
No,
And therefore, they are asking the president to leave. Now, asking the president to leave, as Pradeep said, you wait for the election time and then you send him out. No, this is not the correct procedure. In the constitution itself, there is provision to remove the president. So you need not wait for another several years suffering under the person
Yep.
who is inefficient, mismanaging the whole scenario until election day comes. No, the constitution provides for the removal of the president, and that is the procedure that will be followed. And in following that procedure, there is no anarchy in the system. It is just simply following the constitution. And the president going away, it is not causing any anarchy, etc. Now, as far as the opposition is concerned, or whoever was not, willing to come and take over, was a simple reason. Even the opposition at the beginning. By the way, I have to tell you, I have no any political affiliations. I'm just speaking from a
We are
constitutional
expressing,
view.
Mas Yusuf. You
Yeah.
don't need to give any clarification. We are here to discuss.
Yes.
Every citizen, you are a responsible citizen, concerned citizen of not only Sri Lanka, of the world. You have every right to voice your concern. Please.
Yes, and then why the opposition did not take is they expressly said that they do not want to take a position under a president whom the people are rejecting. So they said you resign and then we will take up the government, and that the president was not willing. Therefore, the opposition was also not willing to go with the formation of a new government, etc. So those are the political side of it. I just wanted to make these clarifications. Thank you very much.
But what should
Yeah.
now? How should
Okay.
Sri Lanka survive now?
For a minute.
Yeah, Jayawardhanji, please go ahead.
I think you can't exercise the will of the people through Facebook. There is not yet anyway. There is a method by which you can exercise it, and you have to wait for that. If you want to follow a different process, yes, there is another process to follow to remove the president, and that is called impeachment. You need to have a 2/3 majority, pass a vote in parliament with a 2/3 majority. Then you have to go to the people and win a referendum by 50% plus one, and then you have to come back to parliament and get another 2/3 majority from the parliament again. That is the process for removing the president. So it's an extremely tedious, difficult process. But if the president really needs to go, that's what you need to do. There is no other system in place. You can't do it by Facebook or WhatsApp or protest at Golface. So
For your information, there is provision in the constitution for the
One
president
second,
to
Mas
resign.
Yusuf, 1 second.
There
After he
is-
That
speaks,
is
you.
what the people are telling for him to resign.
Mas Yusuf.
Not to impeach.
Mas Yusuf, 1 second. After
That
he
is his
finishes,
choice,
you speak.
Not
After.
ours. That is his choice.
Yeah, Mr. Pradeep, go ahead. What is that you wanted to
I
convey?
said that is his
Right.
choice. Resigning is his choice, not our choice. He has been elected by the mandate of the people, and if he is going to resign because of the pressure, then that is his choice.
Yeah, the
There's
same
no other
people.
way. Either you
Yeah, your point is made, Mr. Pradeep. Either he has to resign or else he should be impeached in a proper procedural way.
or voted out.
or
at the
voted
next
out,
election. So,
or voted out next elections. But at the same time, if
and
public,
also with Sajid going and not, I mean, Sajid to go and ask him to resign when he has to take the post from him, it's ridiculous. It's like going to the chairman of the company and say, I want the managing director's job, but you must leave. I mean, it's not going to happen, is it?
yeah, that's
So
another
let's
point.
get Ricker.
Yeah, that's what. But at the same time, this anarchy should go when people I think should come out in large numbers in a peaceful way, so that the president himself says enough is enough, I am going to resign, or else impeachment process should be followed for the survival of democracy. Is that okay, Mas Yusuf?
they-
Otherwise,
Well, they
it will be
have-
chaos
they
if
have
there is
done
no
that.
head.
That's
If
what
there is,
we have seen.
Well,
Let
you
me-
see, Dr. Reddy, now we are going into semantics here, which I don't want to.
no,
which
no,
I
it's
don't
it's
want
not
to
that. See,
respond to.
see, it
So
is not.
I'll allow the ground reality to show, to evidence itself. So let's stop at that, because I don't want to get into semantics here. Thank
Right,
you.
it's fine.
No,
It's
not
fine.
Smelly. Let's be realistic. Actually, what has happened now is that there has been tremendous opposition on the ground. We have seen that. That's what we are seeing in Sri Lanka, and that has created the entire cabinet and the prime minister to resign. President has gone, but everybody under him has gone, and replaced by a new set. So, I mean,
But that also
the-
beats
the-
my
the
intelligence. He
US
has lost.
should be happy that they have made a significant change. You can't expect 100% change, but
Yeah.
if you have got an 80% change or a 90% change,
That
that's
people have to
something.
say, but that people have to say. But when people are still dying, children are dying for want of this thing, food or medicines, that is a pitiable.
There is no people dying in this country for want of food. Please get that straight.
Right.
Nobody has died of starvation in this country yet.
Medicine. The young child,
And
the other
nobody
day,
has died.
the young child, she was not shifted to
Yeah,
the
chil-
hospital. There was no
Children
pet.
are dying in queues. Yeah, if a lot of people go in queues, people will die. A lot of people who are sleeping also die
Right.
in their sleep. So it is not created a massive humanitarian crisis yet.
No, we don't want
Yeah,
to.
we
No,
could
no,
get
we
there.
don't want. See,
But yeah.
you are all our fellow brethren. We don't want such type. We don't want you to go into that state. But when a president, I think, when he lost his entire cabinet, prime minister, I think he should have lost his moral responsibility to rule. That is what a democracy should survive. We want democracy to survive, not dictators to come again take over in the form of Pakistan or Afghanistan. Yeah, Mayank, fringe element should not take advantage of this. That's what our. Yeah, Mr. Mayank. After that, I'll
Dr.
go.
Dr. Reddy, just to update you, the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka just today decided that the non-provision of basic essentials to the citizens of Sri Lanka is a gross violation of the human rights of the Sri Lankan people.
That's a big
Thank
issue.
you very much.
That's
talks
a big
lot.
issue. That's a
Thank you.
big issue. That's a big issue. As a democracy propagators, I feel ashamed. I feel sorry for the Sri Lankans, and even Indian many states are going to do that. That's where everyone's saying Sri Lankan crisis, Sri Lankan crisis. That is why we are trying to debate, discuss. That is the beauty of democracy. Yes, Mayank, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll take a little time. Okay. I've been waiting for too long. So a lot of points I've made notes. Okay.
Go ahead.
So Dr. Shiva, you had beautifully explained by giving example of how when the body is suffering, and then you gave some example on that, right? So the body is complaining about the chemicals that you've had, and then that example that you gave. Same example between telecast is happening. If you see the words of, I don't want to make it personal, but just focus on the words of Pradeep Jayawardene, where he said, "This is the system whether you like it or not." See, this is where in our mind we are programmed to give more importance to the system than to our own feeling of whether something is good or bad, something whether it's likable or not likable. Okay, we think that we are very objective people. Okay, but this is where emotion takes over. We say that if this democratic system is not there, there'll be anarchy. That's an assumption. So the system that has brought an organized anarchy, we want to treat the society with the same system, which has already killed the society. It has brought a very abundantly self-sustainable Sri Lanka into slavery. The same system which has brought Sri Lanka from abundance and self-sustainability to slavery now or debt entrapment, we are justifying the same system to be the solution also again. We are so arrogant human beings. We want to keep applying the same system, which has actually killed the patient. We want to use the same system to revive the patient. That is our arrogance. Okay, and it is not that the person is arrogant. We have got programmed now because of this colonial mindset. Okay, so now uh, the, the 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 issue here is not whether democracy is suitable or not. Okay, the problem is that people have given their survival in the hands of centralized system, and hence this has become a tragic situation. If people were still self-sustainable, it wouldn't matter whether you have democracy or not. Okay, because self-sustainable people, spiritually elevated people, they can coexist through consensus. Okay, and that is not anarchy. The current system is anarchy, because by definition, if you see the words, it says this is the system, whether you like it or not. That means liking and disliking take second seat. The system needs to be upholded. The system which has killed the society, we want to go at the same system and find a solution there. Oh, there is no provision. There is no provision for that. Now let me tell you one thing. We are all shareholders, equitable shareholders of this planet. We are not meant to be enslaved. If the current system has made people slaves, then you have violated the natural law. And by natural law, you can recall any leader. You don't need any constitution to stop you, because constitution is not the highest. The constitution only recognizes our natural rights. The constitution does not bring the natural rights. We have unalienable rights, and constitution only recognizes that. And if in the process of upholding our natural rights, if the constitution has failed, then the constitution needs to be scrapped. The will of the people will express itself. They are requesting you right now, that they are saying they're not liking it, and if people don't accept it now, they will show it with more anger, and that will not be anarchy. That is the result of your arrogance, to impose your system on people without their liking it. Okay, we originally were a society of abundance. When we are abundant, when I am self-sufficient and you are self-sufficient, we don't need a currency to exchange anything. We will gift our abundance to each other. So we don't need a currency for buying food and grocery and fuel. We need self-sustainability first. All these are intellectual discussions, like I said in the past. Okay, and so I've already covered all my points. Let me see if I missed something. Yeah, absolutely. So I think I've covered my points. One last point here is that we always justify the wrong systems of agriculture in the name of population. The current population of the planet is absolutely self-sustainable based on traditional methods of growing or farming. Okay, please, I put you to evidence. Please show me the evidence that the current systems, the current land, the current population cannot be survived or cannot be fed by the natural farming based systems based on the land available that we have. We put you to evidence. Whereas I am willing to give you evidence. If you are willing to sit with me and work together with me, I'm going to give you evidence that the current resources are self-sufficient for double the population on the planet. This is the mindset by which we get into this depopulation agenda.
That's
Okay?
what. That's what.
So
That's.
with this, I rest. I land my plane.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you,
Because
sir.
I before I ask Mr. Pradeep and then Ranjanji to wind up, I will only remind Gandhiji's famous slogan. They said, he clearly stated, there is everything in this land for everyone, not in greed. When you will away, waste your food, and when you fall away from your indigenous methods, your own survival is at risk. And in doing so, you are putting your family, your society, your state, your country's survival at risk. It's very simple. It starts with me, because you are part and parcel of this state, this great, wonderful Earth planet, and as soon as you are born, you have the fundamental rights of a born citizen anywhere, and only after that you accrue the constitution and law of the land of that beautiful place of on the mother planet. Yes, sir. Jayavardhanaji, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayank, I think you are living in India, so whether you like it or not, you are still living in a democratic system of a parliamentary system. So that's what I'm saying. Not that I'm saying it has been forced on people, but unfortunately, we cannot live on an island with no system. We still have to live in a democratic government system, which governs our day-to-day life and how we do things and how we run our own lives. I think we more than the system. I think with Dr. Ranil also we were talking about how the biggest issue we are having is our addiction to fossil fuels, and we have not yet seen a single country being able to break free from that. So we need to solve that problem. The Sri Lanka's problem is not caused by anything else but our big addiction.
Yeah.
That is the main issue.
That is
Addiction
what
to
greed.
fossil fuels,
That
which
is what
has
greed.
destroyed our
Yeah.
economy
Yeah.
by spending all the money that we have earned from the Middle East and all the money that we have earned from exports in paying for our oil addiction. So we need to get out of that. Everybody is talking about the white elephant projects. Everybody is talking about corruption. They think that if you solve those, the problem will go away. No, it will not. You have to solve the biggest problem first, the oil addiction. You need
That's
find a
what.
way
That's
to
what.
solve it.
That's
Now,
what. That.
India, I know, has had a
No,
I think,
no,
a
no,
few years ago,
Jayavardhanaji.
India launched a massive program for energy
No,
sustainability.
no,
And
Jayavardhanaji.
launched a huge solar program.
No, no.
which
Here
I
I am
think
trying. Here I am trying to
was,
correct you, Jay.
It was the right way.
Now, Jayavardhanaji, here I am correcting you. Daily I write mails to President and Prime Minister, all concerned, reduce the prices of oil so that the public transport is favored. Why they are not doing it? The public transport has become so costly. Tomorrow's live show, I'll send you the link. You watch it. Tomorrow we are doing another one, big one in Kerala. I'm going to come up with a big one. We are destroying our natural resources by these addictions. You are moving away the policy decisions from the common human centric. The common human centric needs public transport. When I am traveling in a local auto, sharing auto, when I go by RTC bus, when I am taking a metro, people laugh at me, Mr. Pradeep. They are not giving me any money to buy my equipment. You are a grandson of a great president. I would wish people like you to contribute so that my channel sustains. They have got this type of theatrical in their minds. And even my wife, I convinced, now she is convinced. I tell her, why should I take a car? And whom I am going to impress that way? In doing so, for my sake, and I am straining my body to drive. And not only that, I will be contributing towards carbon emissions or whatever it is. Until and unless it is needed for your health, for your movement, for your security, I prefer to go by public transport. That is how I learned to come to understand the people's problems and what is happening, and that is where I have been writing to Prime Minister. All of a sudden, the oil, gas, and those basic essentials have increased to so much, it has destroyed the public transport, and it has made transport so costlier, so that the movement of people for the migration for employment is totally drastically reduced. Now they are talking about solar and all. Who can I afford to buy a solar car? And why should I afford to buy a solar car, Mr. Pradeep? Why should I? When you are not providing me that much needed public transport, as in you find in America. Tomorrow's discussion, I think you watch it, you will enjoy it. These are things which we have really come out of it. Otherwise, you see to that the mass movement happens in a much cheaper way, in a public transport way, so that you reduce the private usage of cars. This will make people to become one, and that oneness will be there. It will save our vital energies investing on fossil energies, and it will our environment. And not only that, this will allow our children also to understand not to fall for false prides, as you have been rightly mentioning. That false pride is the system which is destroying. I wear, see, this is a normal khadi one, inside normal knitted t-shirt. This is what you need to present, because it is the substance which matters. It is my entity which matters, not the false prides. Under the name of false prides, we are destroying our resources and we are becoming debt ridden. Our resources are looted, like East India Company.
I like to add to your public transport matter. What a lot of people don't realize is that the reason why public transport does not develop is because the investment in cars. But when somebody invests in a car, he has already invested in a very large capital asset. The way to use that asset, if you use that asset as much as possible, it becomes cheaper for you. And we provide, what do we provide? We provide free roads service, the enormous cost of roads. The car user does not pay. The poor man who is walking, the poor man who's going on a bicycle, the poor man who's taking public transport, he is also paying for the cost of that road. But the man with the car is using it free of charge. So there is no incentive for him to use public transport. There is no incentive, and there is no incentive for the government to invest in public transport, because people will buy a car, and the more they use it, the cheaper it gets for them.
Yeah, it's the other way also.
You
The
have to
flip side
change
is, if I'm moving from Hyderabad, if I'm taking a national highway, these toll gates, they collect thousands of rupees, believe me. It is taxing on me. On-site fuel rate is enhanced, and then the toll gates, and believe me that they have also gone up, and again I am utilizing my vital energy, which I should have preserved. I am the boss, right? From Prime Minister, President, they are all public servants, sir. They should work in the benefit, in the welfare of me. I am a constitutional authority, but they are not allowing this information to reach common people. That is why people are scared, afraid. Why? They don't have proper information. That is what through this channel we are trying to do, with having wonderful guests like you all connecting from Sri Lanka, sharing. Yes, Dr. Ranjan, you finish it off.
We have to. Okay, we have to.
Yes.
Thank you, President. Dr. Reddy. Mention was made, Ranil Wickremesinghe was described as the fireman who has come to douse the fire. There's some interference, some noise. Ranil Wickremesinghe has been described as the fireman. Ranil Wickremesinghe has been a MP, parliamentarian for well over 40 years, I think. He has been a minister several times, and he has been a prime minister 5 times. If he had delivered then, today he would not have had to come as the fireman. He failed. That is why he is trying to come as a fireman today. See, he is very much a part of the problem. Can Sri Lanka's problem today be solved by a person who's very much a part of the problem? Actually, the real reason why Ranil Wickremesinghe was chosen as the Prime Minister is to save the Rajapaksa family. That is the bottom line. The real reason is that. Not to say the country or solve the problem. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. A few days ago, there were pictures, not a few days, a few months ago, there were pictures of Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe having a wonderful time in the company of family family home of the Rajapaksas, with all the relations. You see, with all the relations. What does that show? The close friendship, the relationship that exists. There is some interference.
Yeah, it's clear now.
So the real reason is not to save the country, but to save the Rajapaksa family. The real reason.
Right. So that's a big
I
that
think everybody knows.
everybody knows. So let us end this.
Pradeep also mentioned that Sri Lanka is not. So again,
Yeah, end it, sir. You end with your
Sri
note.
Lanka-
Will end.
Pradeep, you.
Yeah, after that, Faisal, you just end it. I think we
Shall
are
I
gone
continue?
beyond time. Yep.
Right. Pradeep also mentioned that Sri Lanka is not bankrupt. You see, Sri Lanka is not bankrupt. Why are there so many queues? People for petrol. My God, unbelievable. In my lifetime, I have never seen queues like that. You see, why are there so many queues? People are sleeping on the pavement. The shed says there is no petrol. But the queues are not, people are not going away. They are staying in the queue and they are sleeping there. They are sleeping on the ground. It's unbelievable. I have never seen a thing like that in my life. You see, and here it is, nephew of grandson of a president say, you see, there is no starvation, it seems. There is nothing wrong with everything is okay, apparently, according to him. This reminds me of Marie Antoinette and the French Revolution. Marie Antoinette also said something like this: if the Paris mob does not have bread, let them. You see, I'm so sorry that is this what people mean when they say history repeats? Is what happened in France so many hundreds of years ago is history repeating in Sri Lanka? I see, and coming from a person who is the grandson of a president, you see, what have we learned? What have we learned? I'm asking. You see, it's very sad. And he said that there is no starvation. The other day, a poor or something to eat for her lunch. She in army. Okay? Can you please give him a list in our own language? She asked me for something to eat for lunch. No starvation, it seems. No starvation. I know of children who have gone to eat because the parents could give them a piece of bread, a slice of bread. I know of children who have gone to boutiques and cried, asking for something to eat. No starvation. My heavens, if these are the people who are leading Sri Lanka, who have led Sri Lanka, I I I feel very sorry. We ask this. You see, people say the people get the government they deserve. We deserve this. If these are the people whom we are electing, we deserve this. We have to change the way we elect people. What are the considerations that we take into account when we choose our leaders, political masters, political rulers? You see, religion, race. Can they solve economic problems? The fact that he is from the same village as I am, or that we are from the same school, Royal College. See, can these solve our problems? We take great pride in saying this country was ruled by royalists and Tories. Then they are accountable for this bankruptcy. Our country's economic collapse. If they take pride in the fact royalists and Tories are taking pride in the fact they're saying that we are the people who royalists and Tories, okay, then they are answerable for what has happened to the country. They are answerable for the country's collapse. So that shows principle of accountability throughout. The principle of accountability was not applied, was not. Those who are accountable came back again and again and again. Minor Rajapaksas. They came back again. And it has been like that throughout the history of our political history of our country. It's very, very sad. I don't see any light at the end of this tunnel. I don't see any light. Thank you.
Very sorry state of affairs. Even India too, we did find such type of after normal demonetization, people were in the queues. And after that, all of a sudden, banks merged. Even today, we find such difficulty because to encourage those corporates who have rooted the banks, public sector fundings, IPOs, they have rooted shares in the form of shares. They're all ran away. And some, they are still here. They have upper Supreme Court, believe me, saying they're bankrupt, but they get 30,000 crores of Rafael all offset contracts. This is what we are trying to expose. That is our wealth. These people take away all that wealth from the common public pool and they show that they become bankrupt and individually they grow investing in some other countries where these corporates rule. And that is how they try to bring back these corporates into the country. Faisal, you want to say something? Jawardhan, you want to say something?
Can I say one more?
Yeah, please.
On
After that, mine. Yeah.
So in 1992, I went to the Soviet Union. And at the hotel I was staying, I went to the bank, the cashier in the hotel, and I changed $5. And I got so much money that there was no money left for people who were standing by me to take from the cashier. I had a lot of money like this. I didn't know where I couldn't spend it. The week I was at, when I left the Soviet Union, I had to give the money. I think just Russia, I had to give this money to my spend it. So what has happened to Sri Lanka is something similar. Our currency has collapsed, and there's lots of confidence in currency, so nobody will bring currency to this country now because they don't know what value of the rupee is anymore. So it is not bankruptcy; it is the collapse of the currency. Collapse of the the other thing that Ranjan said, I think, is very important. He made a very interesting point about somebody asked giving this lady food.
You're echoing.
This is Sri Lanka. Sri Lankans in a crisis will always help each other, and that is why I'm saying nobody starves in this country, because if people are hungry, somebody else will always step in and give food, even if it is something that you will lose, that you will not have this. people will still give. So
So let us hope.
up
Let
to
us
now,
let us let us
what
let
I'm
us.
saying is that there is no starvation issue, there is no food crisis in Sri Lanka. We will create a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is what we must be careful of, not to say that this is, this country is.
But your point is taken.
Nobody is starving in this country.
Right, Mr. Devardhan, your point is taken. Let us hope the economy of humanitarianism will come good to Sri Lanka as well as all the countries who have been touring Sri Lanka as tourists. Now you should raise your voice and make those people to differ or to once for all take Sri Lanka out of this debt, or for that matter, even our elderly gentleman was pointing out. They are not beggars. They have been going through these crises, man-made crisis, because of bureaucratic and executive and their pampered media, sponsored by their corporate nexus. We are going to break that, and I hope I will get hold of Mr. Pradeep also, so that he will be regular on these channels, because we are here to enlighten people. Before I pass on to Faisal to say bye.
Thank you.
Jessica would like to speak also.
Where is Jessica? Speak, Jessica. I've been inviting her. She doesn't open her video. Come on, Jessica. Like Malvi, you are also trying to hide yourself. No, you open your video.
She's hiding.
No, you
Do I
can't.
have to?
Then you
Do I
can't.
have to?
Then you can't do this, because we are being watched by the ex-president's grandson. Jessica.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to say that one thing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We are in a state of revolution. So the events that are taking place are not by circumstance, or nor are they a surprise. This is a revolution, and we will see many acts of revolting. We will see many acts of change. A new world is being birthed. And that's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care, Jessica. I think Faisal, yeah, Mayank, you want to quickly? Faisal, be ready to wind up.
Actually, I was very happy to see a smile on Pradeep Javadne's face, because finally he's smiling. I just love the human smile, and this looks so genuine. Okay,
That's genuine.
so
He's
authentic,
genuine.
but all the
No
logic
wonder.
has to now go out of the window. Now we have to be at human level, human to human interactions. Okay,
That's.
so just two things. When we have these thought process in our mind where you said, "Oh, will of the people" is not what Facebook says. Okay, in the same way, whether people are starving or not is not based on some Facebook statement that you are saying, right? So how can you make a statement like that people are not starving? Have you spoken to every person in Sri Lanka? No. So we have to come out of this whole conceptual way of talking. I think I can tell you that when I'm listening to you, it sounds a little bit like propaganda. Okay, it's like how I want to project my country. See, we all understand we're all in the same state. In our country also we're in the same state, because the same centralized banking system has screwed up all of us. So just look at something so simple that as the food is grown on trees.
I am working every day with the lowest income levels of the city of Colombo every single day. So that's why I'm telling you that I have a feel for what is happening, because the lowest income people in this country are in Colombo, and I am working with them on a daily basis, and I have interaction with them. So
Nothing in
that's
person.
all I can
Now,
do.
just because
Nothing in person,
not
Mayank.
starving,
You make your
not
point, but
because-
nothing in person. Let's not
One
go
second,
beyond.
one second.
Yep.
Just one second. Just because people are not starving, that doesn't mean the system has not collapsed.
No, they have
People are
tremendous hardship.
One second.
System has collapsed. We're not.
One second.
We agree.
The system has collapsed people are not starving thanks to nature, thanks to the indigenous people who must be taking care of each other. Okay, so that's the reason why they're not starving, because God is still there. The system has collapsed because system needs to collapse. Thank you so much for this system which has survived for so long. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a flawed system. And we'll get there with you smiling and along with us, and we'll dance and party along with you. Okay. So
He will
throw
visit.
out these systems. These are archaic. These are colonial systems. You don't need them.
Yeah.
They are designed for Europeans and Arabian people. These are not designed for Sri Lanka and India, because we are people of abundance. We will share our abundance with each other.
That's wonderful.
Okay,
That's
that is the way we will be.
That's
So
the way we
let's
should
try to
be.
get there without a revolution.
Right.
Let's try to get there with love and peace and compassion and grace.
Right. Wonderful. Wonderful.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Faisal. Yeah, Faisal, you wind it up, because as human beings, I keep telling people, when you have a problem, you have a solution beside that. But what happens? In that anxiety, you become so emotional, you ignore it. And after some time, you forget it. Then what you do? You run from pillar to the post, from Babas to everyone, and every doctor, and every advice, till you come back, and then you look at that problem and solution side by side. This is what we say, wisdom. Take a decision when you are wisdom personified, not in emotions. If you are emotional, then you will be. Yes, Faisal. Wind up.
Hi. Yeah, no, I think I must say we don't know how to keep time. No, 7:32. That's 7 to 8:30. Now it's 9:30. Yeah, really long-winded fellows. Anyway, what Jessica said is true. And over the previous weekend, I was attending a conference. It was happening live in Bath in the UK, but I attended it virtually from Sri Lanka. And I got an opportunity to speak as well about what we're trying to do here. But anyway, so there is something happening, there is change happening, and people around the world, not just Sri Lanka, you get the truckers in Canada, you get the truckers in the US now, and all around throughout the world, ordinary people are saying they've had enough and they're not going to take it anymore. So, but as Mayank very correctly said, the whole thing is to do it non-violently and to have our passive revolution, which is why I keep on saying Mahasammata, because the consensus is that if you believe, if you live in Dhamma, Dhamma will protect you. And the methods or methodologies of the Asarali Dhamma, that is all laid out very clearly how we are supposed to approach this thing. So our ancients knew this stuff, and maybe this is a wonderful opportunity for Sri Lanka to show the world what a great place we could be and should be, and it really boils down to remembering that we have to behave well. That is the whole thing about Mahasammata, and the whole thing that we, as long as we, you just can't do it. You're in the village. As anybody, Pradeep, anybody knows, when you go to the village, everybody knows who lives in the city, that when they go to the village, they can't behave in the village in the way that they behave in the city. Because there is a way to behave in the village which is much more libertarian or much more free, and not, although it's hierarchical brown, nobody is lorded over anybody else. Everybody deals as an equal, and you have to be polite. And you can't make a fuss. So I'm saying
and 7 generations in the city.
No, but that's the point. But see, you are concentrating on the city, and as a MMC, I understand.
And 7 generations.
Yeah, okay, but I'm not. But the thing is this, right now, the still for all, I make this complaint a lot because I think it's a gross misrepresentation. Successive governments keep on saying that Sri Lanka is in transition to a services-based economy. It may be in a transition based on GDP or some artificial fake currency valuation, but in terms of the number of people and their vocation, people still want to live a traditional life, and more than 70% of the country want to do that. So there is no basis on which a representative democracy can be operating with with any kind of justification or any kind of reality. That I mean, they don't have a mandate because they are not representing the people who are the majority of the country. I mean, as somebody is saying, if the world was democratic, we'd all be speaking Chinese. But that's not the point. The point is, at the end of the day, we had a system of independent,
You think
self-sufficient.
70% of the population will give up Facebook, YouTube, and everything else that comes with it?
Of course.
I
You
doubt
think amongst my workers, you think any of my workers, I mean, the old leaders and the old
I don't think
generation
any of those kids who are in the at golf phase can give up their mobile phones or the Facebook even for one day.
Why would they give them up? Why would they give it up? I'm not asking them to
And
give
that's
up
what I'm saying.
anything.
You
Why
say
would
go
they
back
give
to
it
traditional.
You keep on taking
know.
something out of context, Pradeep. I'm talking about going back to traditional values and reinventing our institutions.
But traditional values are gone, Faisal, with what is
No,
coming
they
with
aren't gone.
social
Okay,
media.
I
Those
agree.
traditional values
I
are
agree.
gone.
But we know
We have to find new ones.
but no, we don't, because what we do know are the institutions that built those values. That this was Tenakun's crucial key point. Okay, as I said, the point. See, the difference between Tenakun and you and me, Pradeep, is that we were, as you say, brought up in the city, and we were brought up, basically talking a foreign language, whereas Tenakun spent his entire childhood in the village and never left the village. So he was not a colonized person. So he had a native understanding of native indigenous understanding of how our society functioned, how it worked, and the basis of the social contract. And the basis of the social contract was that nobody knows what it's like to be anybody else, and society exists to create the space for that self-discovery. That is how you worship your divine,
No,
by
I
discovering
fully understand
yourself.
what you're saying. My problem is how do you do that in the current context of
So
society?
I have
Because
set
our
we
society
have
has
set all this
completely
up now.
changed.
We have the Gramaraj, if you look at the Gramaraj.com, we have set up we have the digital system where the executive becomes the Gramaraj. And basically, you only around 1,500 units, like Gramana is Nerdari area, 1,500 people. You send 5 delegates from that to the Gramaraj. Then the people vote from the village. So 1,500, your electorate is your village.
So that's a good
There's
point.
no
I think
massive
Faisal, that,
expense on running elections and stuff like that, because your vote you're sending from a debate. You have the right of recall. In the Gramaraj, I mean, go and look at Gramaraj.com, and Dr. Reddy, I'd really like a day, if we can have a day where we can talk about local government and alternative systems, alternative solutions, and you give me a chance to explain this Gramaraj concept as we are trying to talk about it.
Yeah, let's do
here,
that.
Faisal.
I have to go, guys.
no, what we'll do, Faisal, Faisal,
Just 1 minute if I.
Faisal, what we'll do, one second, Mike. Faisal, what we'll do, this basic concept of rural to urban, having our own indigenous lifestyles, and I should add in Mr. Pradeep Jayawardhane's wording, customization without losing our identity, without yielding our nature or environment to anyone. So these things we will discuss profusely and in a proper context next week, because now the burning issue, I want Sri Lankans to survive with dignity, and where there should be a transparency and accountability in rule, and the corruption regime, whoever it is, we are not individually against anyone or any party for that matter, but that should be probed as per rule of law, and that too in a fair way. Only then these corrupt practices can be brought to book. If you become prejudiced, become emotional, that should not happen. At the same time, the government, if it is not able to protect the lives of those protesting youth, it will be shaming the constitutional democracy, people participatory constitutional democracy. We will all have to be blamed ourselves. No precious life should be lost. That is what I wanted to convey at the end. We will have. Mayank, we are winding up. You have anything to add? Fast.
you.
Yeah.
Fast.
Yeah, just I need half a minute only.
Just fast, finish it. Pradeep, Mr. Pradeep wants to go.
Yeah, just even less than 30 seconds. So if using of Facebook and Google and all of that comes at the cost of our autonomy, then we will reinvent it ourselves.
That's it.
Let's have the courage if we need it. Okay, we will not accept their slavery because of if that comes as a condition to use Facebook means we accept the slavery. No, sorry, out of my country.
That's what you should do.
Point
And
blank out of my country.
yeah, we
Not
have.
leave you.
Yes,
Okay?
that's what
That's
Mr.
the whole
Pradeep was
point.
stating. That's
Yeah.
what he meant.
And for the
That's what we
yeah.
need also.
And the second part is
Yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead.
there is already a system. There's already a system called democracy or sociocracy. I shared this already with Faisal Mansoor. There's a gentleman by the name Edwin. I'll share the links to you. Let's invite him along with Pradeep Jayawardene and Faisal Mansoor and rest of the people that were there today. Let's have a detailed discussion on this.
Wonderful. We will. We are all.
And I send my hugs to you, Pradeep Jayawardene.
There, let us hug each other, Pradeep.
I'm
That's
looking forward to the day that we can get our president to resign from the push of a button. One click.
that's what.
If we are self-sustainable, it doesn't matter who the president is. Okay.
You're not the only one who would like to remove a president by the click of a button.
Yes, Jessica. Jessica is still active. Likewise, Malvi. So this is for the day. Let this smiles
All
be
right.
there
Thank
on
you.
every face of Sri Lankan, and for that matter, even Indians. Let us not get into such Sri Lankan state. God wish. Let all citizens be happy, healthy, and not in a crony capitalist way thinking. Let us not move away from the established norms of our nature, our human existence. Let us not give in to greed. Let us utilize the nature, whether it is food or otherwise, only for our needs. So that this beautiful Mother Earth planet with all those plenty of natural resources can be saved for our future generations too. Don't forget, you look here and there, you have your son and daughter. Don't you think you need to save